reinventing themselves and kind of coming to grips. So I think one of my favorite records of the year that I don't even know is if you brought it is on your list is Public Enemy Apocalypse.
Yeah, I got it there. I got it
I
on the
love
list.
that. Oh wow!
By the time I get to Arizona, was that
whole album is just
that made you want to just throw a chair through the window when you heard that
the most
beat.
Underrated record, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not if you count all the recent ones that came out that are dope that only you and I have heard.
Yeah.
Then,
no,
then
it's
it's
true.
not the
That's true, but you know, I mean,
older though. I mean, those are good records. Actually.
They are, and I think that was the thing that people started to even not pay as much attention to someone like Public Enemy, who 2 or 3 years before that were impossible not to pay attention to. So, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just meant that things were spreading out, and there was a lot more. You know, back in '87, you know, you could count the number of actual LPs on, you know, maybe 2 or 3 hands. You know what I mean? So, at that point, people were getting deals, and you know, it was kind of wide open. Hip hop was starting to kind of look at itself and say, okay, we've gone through really like phase 1 of hip hop as a recorded art form. Now what's next? You know, and what was next was some of the stuff you're talking about, '93. Certainly the West Coast, you know, explosion that came with the Chronic. You know, because NWA, the first NWA record was really, in a lot of ways, maybe not in the lyrics, but musically it was basically like a Bomb Squad thing.
Right.
You know, in a lot of ways, it was an extension. It was an approximation of what the Bomb Squad was doing, just in a more kind of LA context. But
like it's always into something like that sounds.
Yeah, they were
Is that 91, by the way.
That was 91.
Chronic was 90.
90.
Chronic?
Chronic
Always
was
into
92.
something.
But you know, Niggas for Life.
Oh man,
that was 91.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just
You know,
waiting for you
but
to
they
say
were
it.
in disarray by then. I mean, you know, Cube had left and on his solo career. So, you know, 91 was a really pivotal year.
Yeah,
you know, I wouldn't say that it's the greatest year in the history of hip hop, but
it's a
it was really
transitional
important because it was kind of like hip hop was teething. You know, it was starting to.
Well, it couldn't be
figure out-
because Cannabis didn't come out with an album.
Exactly.
You know, and also like, you know, when you said about the Bomb Squad, I can see that connection you make because, you know, Ice Cube's first album, he came to the East Coast and recorded with Hank and Keith Shockley, you know, and got down with like the Zulu Nation, and you know, he was, you know, his sound was just as fiery as it was on the Straight Outta Compton record.
No, it was actually I've done, you know, a whole chapter on America's Most Wanted that will be out in whatever next book I do. But the story is kind of interesting. The way he convinced the Bomb Squad to produce his record was he had told, like word got back to Dre and kind of NWA crew that he was going to work with the Bomb Squad, and they just laughed at him. You know, they said, yeah, right, yeah.
You're talking about before or after a Hollywood Burn?
This was before.
Oh, before?
Oh, no,
yeah.
well, after Burn Hollywood Burn, but before they really started on America's Most Wanted. And so Cube basically told that to Shockley, and he took it as a dare. He just said, oh, yeah, well, let's see what happens, and we all know what happened. So, but it was an interesting time even for Cube. I mean, he was not... It's interesting talking to him about that era because before America's Most Wanted came out, he was not this super confident MC. He was on record, but he didn't know what was going to happen. He was not like, oh yeah, I know I'm going to blow up. And
He was just like, are we there yet?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
he was. It was him and Sir Jinx came out to New York like alone. They had no crew, you know, and they just kind of just were in the studio and doing their thing. So, but they didn't know how things were going to go.
Yeah, here's an extension of Chris's last question about what was going on at the time with, you know, people seeing music, the cliche, it's not like what it used to be. Historically, when the economy's in the doldrums, the music gets better. The economy was really bad, not as bad as now, but it was really bad in '91 with the first Bush. You know, kind of history repeating itself.
After this, we'll be asking about the hip hop in 1940.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'll be asking about Louis Jordan and Caledonia, right? So, do you see that, you know, maybe in 2009, would you say that that's the case, that the music has gotten better within the past couple of years since the economy's been on a downturn, just like it was in '91 when things started getting better, I guess, so to speak, with a new beginning with, the punk, revolution that came back, and the hip hop and all the underground, genres that really started to come to a head?
I mean, personally, I would say no. You know, I don't really think that, especially music in any genre on a major label, is very good right now at all. You know, I think that there needs to be some kind of a violent overthrow for that to happen, and it's not necessarily a bad thing.
You said violent, folks.
It's not necessarily bad if it doesn't happen, because I think that the way that a lot of kind of labels and the way that music is distributed in 2009 lends itself perfectly for indie artists, and that's really what's important. But you know, I mean, I don't really see that much fire in certainly in a lot of major label artists on any level. You know, even the new stuff that's coming out. You know,
Clearly, someone who hasn't heard Shawty Low.
Yes, I get it.
Kid Cudi's not fired.
You know, yeah, it's like a lot of this stuff. Well, it's like I always try. Is something good like now? Is it good like compared to stuff that's out this year, or is it just good?
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of that stuff doesn't really measure up to the second criteria, in my opinion.
Right.
But you know, it's all good. Like, I mean, I have no problem listening to stuff that's older until something better comes along to kind of knock that off my playlist. So
the way he just said that was kind of like when my grandfather was like, Chris, you know, a lot of people say that I'm racist, but you could date whatever kind of girl you want. She can be